Hi there, welcome to Let's Talk Tottenham. Another week and another set of managers that are turning us down. This week it's Graham Potter who's decided we're not a big enough club for a manager who finished 17th, so we're in big trouble here, real embarrassment. I'm joined by Khalid, you might know as MisterK on Twitter, to talk about that. Nuno as well, who's now looking like he's joining Fenerbahce, and the search for a manager goes on and on and on, and where will it end, or have we already got a deal in place with someone at the Euros? So talk about all that and much more on Let's Talk Somebody Please Manage Us. Hi Khalid, how you doing?
Not too bad, Chris. It's absolutely wonderful to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
That's no problem at all. Thanks so much for coming on. Obviously, it's not the best time to be a Spurs fan at the moment. This manager situation seems to be going on and on and on and on. At some point, we will be linked to every manager in the world, I think. Where will it end? I mean, what are your thoughts on the manager situation? The fact that it's just we're being linked to every manager and seemingly either turned down or rejecting every manager. What are your thoughts on that?
I think to be or not to be is the question. Will there be a manager? Will there not be a manager before the pre-season friendly starts? Is it all a play? Is it all a ploy to get Mason to kind of warm into the hearts of the fan base? Or is this a complete mess that Levy has created because of his incompetence? Maybe his arrogance. Maybe he thought he had something in the bag with Nagelsmann and it didn't quite transpire. Maybe it took too long. Maybe he's upset with Jose because he took too long. Maybe he's upset with himself for taking too long. Because at the end of the day, by the time he got around to sacking Jose, Nagelsmann already started talking to Bayern. It was way too late. He was entertaining them because he had no choice, because he spent the whole year being excited to want to play for Spurs, to manage Spurs. And that was the reality, is that what the situation with our club, Chris, you know this as well as me, when it comes to player transfers or in this particular appointment, it seems that we don't strike when the iron's hot.
Yeah.
If you look at some of our transfer policies coming in, like Grealish, for example, we could have struck when the iron was hot, paid the extra £5 million to the new owners, because the new owners came in, we agreed 20 million. The new owners came in and said they wanted 25. And that was actually part of an agreement that Levy had already agreed to when he made the agreement for £20 million. He said, I will pay £20 million. They said, well, you have to pay £5 million more if the new owners come in. He said, fine, I'll do that. Now, if he turned around and took them by the hand straight away, 20 million would have been done. But if you want to play your Levy games, then you're going to have to agree to say, well, if a new owner's coming, you have to put £5 million more in. Now, in order to keep or reserve like a deposit, a situation or a negotiation, you leave it on the table. That means you haven't scrapped it. You're still in agreement with it. And this is the problem that Levy has, is that he will leave it on the table as if he's still there. But in reality, he's put himself in a position where he's not really going to take a step forward. And people by now have clocked that. They're no longer waiting for Levy to come to them. They're saying, well, look, Levy, if you want to do business, we'll do business. Otherwise, go away. Yeah. When he went back to try to get Ericsson, they said, look, you want to do business? Here's how much you have to pay us. Well, where did we learn this from? We learned this from you. So the managership, the managers coming in, I think is an incompetent situation that Levy has put himself into, where he planned to have a backup strategy to Jose, I think probably as far back as September, right? The previous season. I think there was rumblings going on and the word Nagelsmann started to come out, thinking that Nagelsmann is on the way up. And eventually he's going to outgrow his club. And if he's going to outgrow his club, then what type of clubs would be interested in? What type of project would be interested in? The way he plays, the way he changes his formations according to the type of team that he's playing against, the type of players that he has. He has in his locker that ability to go to 3-4-3, which will take advantage of people like Sessegnon, Aurier, Doherty. Those players can work more in the 4-3-4 than they can in the 4 at the back. In the 4 in the back, people like Sessegnon, they can't defend deep enough. People like Aurier, for example, can get pulled out of position. People like Doherty can get spun on the spot without someone to back him up. So formation is kind of important to whichever manager comes in. If, on the other hand, we have a complete sale out of players, then you can call in any specialist and then buy the type of players that particular manager wants you to buy. Now, when it comes to what type of manager, we're in this situation now where it's not just as simple as what players do we have, what are we aiming for? It's now also we have someone called a general manager, but technically speaking, the role is very similar to that of a director of football.
Yeah, that's
And that is the
Paratici, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think the way it's like the word Paratici. I mean, I think Iggy from Tottenham away, he's kind of corrected me on this many times. It's Paratici.
Okay.
All right, it's like para, but it's something like that. It's Paratici.
Yeah.
There's a slight pause as well. It's like Regulon or Regulon. There's a difference there as well. But Paratici is like it's like an American, but it's wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, as I was saying, Paratici, because we have a director of football, he's technically speaking the person in charge of implementing the vision of Tottenham Hotspur's football. Okay, he's not the one in charge of the property assets outside, or as levy land, as we like to call it. Which I mean, there seems to be a constant development, and there doesn't seem to be a pause or a delay or any hiccup when it comes to any of the property portfolios that Levy gets his fingers involved in. But when it comes to the football side of it, I think it's a bit unfair for people to turn around and say to have a go at Levy for mistakes when it comes to what type of managers have said no, because the truth is we don't know. We don't know what the negotiations were. We don't know who said what. Obviously, the manager's agents or the entourage around the manager is always going to make him look nice and always point the finger back towards our club to say we're the ones. Why? Because they're going to move on to another club. They want to, like, for example, if you look at Nuno, for example, Nuno Espirito Santo. On a Friday, everyone was excited. He was practically signed. On the Monday, it's not happening. He's signing with Fenerbahce. Wait. How did that switch so fast? Was he already in talks with Fenerbahce? If he was, how come no one heard about it? Did you hear about it?
No.
No, because it wasn't until they announced it. It wasn't until they announced that he's deep into talks to Fenerbahce after the fact that he stated, it doesn't look like Tottenham might be that keen on me, right? So first of all, he's about to sign, and then it's a case of, I don't think Levy likes me that much. Where did that come from? Now, here's the situation as it's playing out. Okay, this is where you got to be slightly precise upon what you exactly observe, so that you can be very precise about what you understand. It's very important not to get mixed up with this social media world. It will spin you on the spot, and you'll end up being dazed and not realizing what's going on. So, if you look at Levy's image, because let's face it, his reputation as the leader of Tottenham Hotspur, the chairman, is being called into question. And he may have brought out some videos and dismissed things. He may not come out and apologize that much when it comes to the ESL. So he has that air of, I'm doing the best for the club. So that's why he's not made you apologize. He hasn't got on his knees and groveled to the football fans to say, I'm really sorry about ESL. He didn't say that. All the other chairmen did. He's the only one that didn't. He turned around and said, well, if you guys feel that it's a mistake, then I won't do it. That's a very different thing. Now, if you take that mentality and bring it towards the manager's side, then what you're seeing is Paratici is turning around and saying, okay, what type of playing style do we want? 3-4-3. Which managers do I know that can play 4-3-4-3? A, B, and C, and D. There's a long list of them, right? Out of these managers, who's available? Who can I afford? Who is experienced in the Premier League? Who can work with the board? Who can work with limited funds? Who can make something out of the players that we have? Who's a good man management coach who endears himself to the players, and the players endear himself to him? If you look at Poch, for example, he was actually quite a decent man manager because he would pat people on the shoulder. You'd get that sense of feeling that these youngsters, they wanted to fight for him.
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, as they grew older and became more wary, and they began to realize that, that Poch's power is limited by the fact that Levy's in charge of everything, they realized that they weren't going to get their magical contracts. They weren't going to get their superstar footballers that were going to come into the club to play alongside them. They realized that was all a dream, a fake dream. So they started to lose trust in the vision that Poch was speaking about. So Poch is saying, listen, this is my vision, this is my dream. and the players would turn around and they believed in it, and they would run through brick walls for him, and they would run around for 95 minutes in a match. When they slowly began to lose that sense of belief that Poch had that level of influence, and that in reality Levy was one pulling all the strings, they became despondent. When they became despondent, they're not pushing at 110%. And you could clearly see that on the pitch, because that 1 or 2% of difference, right, yeah, is all it takes in the Premier League between the 18th side to the second side.
Yeah,
it's 1 or 2%. And so here you have a manager that's coming in. Paratici says, "Hey, you go, Nuno. We can afford you. You've got experience. You've got good manners. You play with what we got." And then what happened? Some of the fan base turned around and said, "No, we don't like this fella." And this is when you know that there's something dodgy going on. Is when the people come out with the most lamest excuses ever heard. One of the excuses that they didn't like about Nuno was he's not very good with press conferences.
I didn't see that one.
Great. No, his English isn't that great.
Yeah, neither was Pochettino's though, was it? And that didn't seem to affect anything. Certainly early going.
Well, the point is, at the end of the day, it's like you're talking about the least important thing.
Yeah.
And yet that's the only thing you can pull out. So if that's the only thing you can, so then they'll say, okay, well, based upon that false fact, I will now point towards. Let's look at the other statistics, like his football. How many games has he played? What's his win percentage? What's this? What's that? There's no apples to apples or pears to pears comparison. How can you compare a team that came from the Championship, made it into the Premier League, and look at their stats and compare it in any way to us? We're totally different kettle of fish. You can't compare what he did previously, because those clubs, they're not anywhere near our level, right? So there was this. So what I felt was that in the social media, and there was this feeling going around where you're saying no to Nuno became trendy than actual facts.
Yeah,
and common sense.
I mean, that started with Gattuso, didn't it? There was a no to Gattuso thing, and it seems to be with every manager now. But like for me, I think Nuno's a bit too negative. Obviously, with Wolves, he had a massive injury to Jimenez. I mean, that would affect any team. It would be like Kane getting injured for us. So it may be different with us, but my choice would be Potter, because I think he plays really good football. He's just struggling at Brighton because he doesn't have a recognised striker there. If they had Harry Kane there, for example, they'd be pushing for Europe because the amount of that they create. But it seems to be in the paper that he's turned us down. And if that's true, I mean, you mentioned with social media in the paper there, it could all be complete nonsense. But if the team finishes, if the manager of the team finishing 17th has turned us down because we're not a big enough club, that's a problem. But I wouldn't be surprised, and I said this from the start, that all of these we're linked with this manager, that manager, they turn us down, isn't a smokescreen. We've already got a deal in place for someone like a Martinez after the Euros, and all of this linked with this manager is so that they can go, well, we're trying, and we couldn't get anyone. Martinez is available, and you know how Levy is. You never get the sense that what Levy tells you is true. It's always kind of manipulated in some way. And so, I mean,
I think it's safer just to turn around and just assume a default position that it's all fun and it's all games.
Yeah. Is that what you think, that this is all smoke and mirrors and all of these managers turning us down is all nonsense? Hinted at the fact that you said that Nuno's suddenly going to Fenerbahce and that was never mentioned in 3 days.
Look, this is where the mistake is. I don't think like that. The reason why, because this is a mistake to start thinking like this. Instead, what you've got to do is you've got to turn around and say to yourself, I hold you responsible for you not doing your duty.
Levy, you're talking about.
Yeah. Whoever that is, the board, the job, the club. I hold the club responsible.
Needed to clarify that. You were pointing at me for a moment there, so I thought I'd
No. Great, Chris, why are you not doing it? But,
should have recorded this ages ago. You've done it wrong.
So my point is, rather than speculating what they are doing, what they're not doing, what they are saying, what they're going to do, no, I just simply look at it and say, okay, are we a top 6 club? Right, are we a top 10 club? Forget top 6. Let's not be so arrogant about it, because we finished 7th and we didn't look like we're coming. Well, actually, no, it looked like we might go into top 4 eventually. But anyway, the point is, we're a top 6 club. definitely a top 8 or 7 club. And if you're in the Premier League, that means you have far more than enough money. With money comes the ability to employ the best people. It's not how big your stadium is, it's how well your team can play within that stadium. So it's also not just that, but it's also your press secretary, all the other people that you need in your organization to make it run effectively, the people who cut the grass, the people who throw the ball at you, everyone. Yeah. So as a top 6 organization, if you cannot sort out who your manager is, who your head coach is, pretty sharp is, if you cannot push that, it either means that you're very, very confident on what you're doing, or it means that you're hopeless and have no clue.
It's got to be the latter, surely, I think.
Well, I mean, let's put it this way. Some people turned around and said that when Jose was asked to leave 6 days before a cup final, that it wouldn't have made any difference whether Jose was there or not there. We would have still lost it.
Well,
okay? Yeah, exactly. I think those people have just not watched Jose in any final before.
No. But he's the only manager, isn't he? He's the only manager to have beaten Pep Guardiola in a final in Pep's career. But what I don't understand about it, Pochettino, for me, is the best manager that I've had in my lifetime, certainly in the Premier League era. And to sack him, fine, you want something different. But you bring Jose in not to build a project. You bring Jose in to win a trophy. And the first chance he gets, he's fired a week before it. So what was the point of bringing Jose in? You're bringing him in to win a trophy, and then you're not even giving him a chance to win that trophy. So it's a complete waste of time in my book.
I think what it is, when we try to rationalize certain things, we want certain bits of information in order for us to focus on how we rationalize. And this is the issue that we come across many times, is a lot of facts that we don't know. And some facts, or rather, some things sound plausible, but they can't be plausible and then something else be plausible at the same time. So one is right or the other one's right, one or the other. So, for example, Duncan Castle's reported that he, because whenever you come to any information that you're going to speak about, you have to look at its sources. So if you see something and you're going to talk about it, then you have to say, well, where did that information come from? And where did that get from, and so forth. So what happened between Jose and Levy? So you have these two people, Jose and Levy. Then you can't speak to either of them. So what are you going to do? You're going to speak to Jose? You can't speak to him. But what about the people around Jose? Okay, fine, I can speak to that person there. All right, Giza, who's sitting in a pub. What's going on? Now, so we're looking at second, third-hand knowledge here. But at least you're tracing it back. So Duncan Castle spoke to these particular type of people, and they said to him that basically he's the type of manager that wants to win. And I think everyone knows that. And when it comes to cup competitions, he wants to win them more than anything. Cup competitions. When Poch was around, Poch said it clearly. Sorry, can't do it. We're going to concentrate in top 4. Forget your cups. If you stay with me, we're going to be champions. That's what I'm going to make you. So if you stay on the journey with me, we're going to be champions. That's what we're going for. Right. So here is a different situation. Here is someone saying, listen, forget being champions. I'm going to get you a cup. I don't care which one it is. You'll be happy with any of them. And the fan base says, thank you. We have an agreement. So I'll follow you so long as we're going in that direction. Now, here's the problem with our fan base. The cup date was a certain time, March. But they were already after him to be sacked months before that. Right? Which means that they never made that arrangement with him. They never in their heart turned around and said, okay, I like that arrangement that you can just get me any cup. I know you're not going to build us a team that's going to last 10 years like Poch was going to. So you're going to give us a different agreement. Right? I accept that or I don't accept that. So what you had was a bunch of people that said, yes, I accept that. I will support you. When times are good or when times are bad, I will support you. I've got your back. Right? That's what it means to be, a Spurs fan. You support things. You support your manager, you support your club, you support your team. Right? This whole concept of divide and rule. Oh, classic. So here you have a bunch of fans that never accepted it in the first place. That didn't accept this agreement. No, we don't want to be just happy with a cup. We want the big, really big stuff. And you're not the guy that can take us there. You're not a project man. So their hearts have never had an agreement. And so therefore, any sign of trouble, they'll be the first ones to jump on there. And you saw that. September, October, and so forth.
Do you think what Pochettino did there, like we had a couple of title runs, got to the final of the Champions League, do you think he kind of raised expectations and then we became a little bit, not arrogant, I can't think of the right word, like we demanded much, much more because we were there before, and anything less is a disgrace, when really Pochettino possibly pushed those players to a higher level?
No. I think you have to look at the history of the club and what the actual club stands for. The club's motto, right, is to dare. To dare is to do. To dare is to do. To dare. Do you dare? And Poch was telling us to dare. And we went along with him. We wanted to dare too. So what were the consequences of that? The consequences of that was that you had a team that was willing to fight on the pitch. You remember that match at the bridge? I mean, that was Spurs proper coming of age, where they fought for each other. They backed each other up physically. And as a Spurs fan, one of the places you don't really want to be caught in anywhere near is the bridge, right? Right? So imagine how the players feel. And yet the players, they were in the front. They're fighting for us, right? And they're really going in hard. So finally, you had a sense of something called pride. Forget glory. Forget glory is when you got the cup. I'm not talking about the cup. I'm talking about the journey. How do you get there? Some clubs, they'll buy it. Yeah? Some clubs, they have other ways. They have a inertia, which is very, very big. So there's more chance of them winning it. And that's something like Man United, a very big club. They put a lot of money into transfers, and therefore they have inertia that's been carrying on. It's pushing them along. Okay. With us, it's more of a case of going back to our days of glory. And in order to do that, you have to have a step-by-step approach. So the first step is you've got to be consistent with getting into Europe. Then you have to be consistent in getting into the top flight of Europe, which is the Champions League. And then once you get consistent within that, you've got to be consistent getting out the group stages, right? So you're hitting the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and so forth. And eventually, once in a while, you might do it. You might pop off into the final and win it. And that's the hope, right? We were the club that had got to that stage where we were getting comfortable with getting out of the group stages, right? So we're not a club that goes into the Champions League and says, "Hey, we're one of the contenders." No, but we're definitely one of those clubs that says, "Now we've entered the competition, we're a serious contender because we have the ability to get out of the group stages." We're not cannon fodder in the group stages. I remember there was a time, I mean, what was it? Young boys, they always whooped us.
Yeah, that's with Redknapp, wasn't it?
Redknapp, yeah. So my point was that there was a time when we used to struggle with group stages. We'd be lucky to get into group stages, let alone. And then when we get into group stages, we used to have really terrible games, right? And the expectation was there. But now it's the opposite, where you expect your team to get out the group stages. You expect your team to be the top dog within the group stages. And therefore, when you get beaten by teams like Zagreb, for example, right, it really hurts. It really, really hurts. I mean, their manager was inside a prison. I mean, crying out loud. You can get more jokes. But coming back to the expectation side of it, yes, we did raise our expectation, but that's purely by the fact of what you could see on the pitch. We were a team that didn't mind going down a goal or two down. We were still at you. We were like Ferguson's teams, right? Yeah, when the last 2 or 3 minutes, it's our team that looks like we're going to win. It's our team that looks like we're going to get a ball in the back of the net, not the opposition. So therefore, if you now look at where we are, we're now the team that's likely to concede in the first 5 minutes. We're the type of team that can't hold that 1 goal lead. We're the type of team that if we do go a goal or two down, we're not going to come back. We're the type of team that if one thing happens, we know what the next 4 things are going to be. And because of that, we give up. We give in.
Yeah.
So I think that's a shame.
Who do you think will get there, and who do you think that person will be the man to take us back to those heights? Because I've got a sneaky suspicion as well that whoever we get is just a stopgap, and then in 2 years' time, when Poch's PSG contract is up, they'll try and get him and bring him in again. But I could be wrong on that. We could get someone who, like Pochettino, is capable of building something. But I personally think it's just a stopgap, and then we'll try and get Pochettino back in again. But who do you think we'll end up with? And do you think it will be a long-term appointment or a short-term appointment? Or do you think it will be, let's wait and see and how we do appointment, but it's not decided yet?
Okay, there's 20 teams that happen to be in the Premier League at any one season. Right? So if you get all those teams together and ask yourself, what's the average lifespan of any manager on your team? You come to a conclusion, it's a year to 2 years. Right? That's the average lifetime. So you have to ask yourself, well, if that's roughly the average of what really happens, then what do we want, and how do we want it? I mean, even if you get the best of intentions of the best type of person for the job and role, if they had bad results, then we're not going to keep them for 5 years. So through thick and thin. When you look at Ferguson, for example, when he was manager for Manchester United, they stuck with him. They could have got rid of him. Right?
It's a different era now, I think. Gone are the days of Ferguson staying there for 20 years and Wenger, I think. It's now, like you say, if results are going bad, get out. But Pochettino obviously didn't struggle. He finished fifth. But in terms of where we wanted to be, he didn't achieve expectation. But they stuck with him. And then we ended up having title races. And then the second it went a bit sour again, he was let go. But then that was possibly Levy not backing him up. But
I think look, at the end of the day, right? Yeah, we turn around and always point the finger towards Levy, but nothing would happen without the support of the fans. That's what's crazy. That means that basically there was a portion of the fans that really wanted Poch to go. They weren't happy with the performances. They would say, listen, forget the beginning of the season. If you look from January to January, we're in a relegation form. We look at how many points we actually picked up from a January to a January. Forget the beginning of the season, from September to the end. No, but from the January to the January, it was like, we were the worst team in the Premier League. And yet we're in the Champions League final the same year. So, but doesn't that remind you of Wigan? You remember Wigan back in the day?
Well, when they won the FA Cup and got relegated.
Well, surprising enough, there's a name we haven't mentioned for a while, Martinez.
Well,
Martinez.
Yeah. I think we'll end up with him. He's one of my, he's in the Euros. I think we'll end up with him, and that fills me with a little bit of dread. But the biggest dread that I have at the moment, and you mentioned it earlier, where we never strike while the iron's hot. I can't remember when the season starts, but it'll be August sometime. But we haven't got a manager yet. We've got our best player who potentially wants to leave, and there might be bids coming in for him. You've then got to replace him. But we've only got 6 players, because Bale was number 7, but won't be coming back, who are at the Euros. The rest of them are going to start pre-season, and they don't know who the bloody manager is. We haven't bought anyone. We haven't sold anyone. And we're going to end up in a situation where whatever the first game is, Man City, whenever that is, it's exactly the same team, with a manager who's been there for 2 weeks, and they've got to. So that's what makes me think it's someone in the Euros, because that's normally you'd have someone signed up by then to go through pre-season, go, well, I want this player out, that player out, this player in, and we haven't had that. But Martinez is. I mean, he's a good attacking manager, so we'll get that hoodoo out of the way. We won't have the boring Mourinho ball anymore, but then he can't bloody defend. So it'll be cricket scores every time, and I can't cope with that amount of stress.
I think that was one of the. I think when he was in charge of Everton, right? I think that was one of the things that was highlighted there, was that during the first season he had some defensive cohesion. And a lot of people turned around and said that was because Moyes had instilled that into the club. Come to the second year, because he had pushed his style more forward and got the player transfers and all the rest of it that he wanted to get stage 1 into, you started to see a bit more of a transition team. Unfortunately, that transition team was leaving the hallmarks of his defensive nature but a little bit behind with Moyes and moving forward. And unfortunately, whenever you have a transition period, you're going to have a bit of this and a bit of that. And so when people judge someone, they say, "Oh, well, that proves that Martinez is no good in defensively." And I think to myself, it's not necessarily true, because look at the last game they played. I mean, did they win that by 1-0?
I can't remember now.
My point being is that in order for you to win something, you have to concede less. And he has been winning, which means that regardless of what anyone says, his defensive capability is enough. You know what it is? I think there's a high degree of arrogance amongst some of the fan base when it comes to pointing at certain people and saying they're good or not good. I don't think the majority of us are actually qualified to even make that or something. Like, for example, saying no to Nuno. It's like, are you crazy? Like, this guy knows how to run this 3-4-3 system, right? Yeah, a lot of the Portuguese teams are ahead of Britain. Britain's still going through the 4-3-3, the 4-2-3-1. We're still using those formations, whereas other countries have already moved on to the 3-4-3 to take possession of the midfield, to attack and engage the end. Like, for example, Bayern. Look at their attacking how often they attack from left, right, and centre to get goals in, and because of that system. So we've got to become a little bit more aware as a fan base of what these managers offer us, and we can't be saying no to something, because if you start saying no, then it becomes a trend, and it looks like Levy's actually listening to things. Or maybe this is just smoke and mirrors, and he's expecting us to do this anyway.
Yeah.
But coming back to the being grateful and being able to observe, I think Martinez, he's good with people, good with players, good with stars. He's got class. He's got recognition. He's got obviously an FA Cup, so at least he's won something. Secondly, on top of that, he's the Belgium team, without doubt, one of the best teams in the last 5 years. Yeah. So if that's the case, he's managing one of the best teams in the world in the last 5 years. So the pedigree's there for anyone to doubt him. If you think you deserve better, then show me the evidence. I don't think we've done enough to deserve better. Do we expect someone like Ancelotti to come along and lead us? Ancelotti went where? No. He's the type of manager that would go and take care of Real Madrid. Are we that expectation where we expect managers like that to come to us? No. Well, if that's the case, we might as well get Pep Guardiola. Let's even go buy. Look, Pep Guardiola, he lost the Champions League final. He's going to leave and want a new project. Yeah, come to Tottenham, mate. Do the Jose challenge.
My pick was Potter, but that looks like that's not going to happen. Who would your pick be if you were in Levy's shoes and you were to go? Who would you be going after that is available and likely to come in?
I would take if I was Levy, I would take a 50% pay cut and promote my assistant and take a holiday for 2 years. And the 50% of my wages, which I've dropped, I would use that 50% to buy Poch. And I would sit with Poch and I would sit with Paratici and say, guys, good luck. I'm off to the Bahamas.
Right. Okay. So Poch would be your pick.
No, you have to have a combination.
Well,
no manager. Look, we know now, 2021, we know for a fact now that a manager is nothing more than a head coach. Go on other Ferguson, go on other Wengers, go on other managers that would make those decisions. They're no longer involved in the decisions anymore. So we cannot think of our squad and our team as just the one manager. We have to think of it as a team structure. Who is the technical director? Who is the football director? Who is the head of youth development? How is our scouting network going on? How does that link itself back with the football director, the technical director, and then the manager, the head coach? How does that link in with the type of coaching staff that we have? Is the expectation there with the players that we've got on board to work out these philosophies? So it's a very integrated pie. It's not dependent on one thing. It's dependent on many things working together. And I think what's happened is that people like Jose have come along expecting there to be a cohesive package, finding out there isn't, and then being obligated not to say anything. So he's in the press conference, and you can see it in his face. He wants to say things to us. And he's telling them, look, I cannot say. And it's like everyone's having a laugh. He basically humiliated our club, but he didn't. Levy's been humiliating our club. People like Joseph just let us know about it. People like Poch have tried to let us know about it. People like Danny Rose have tried to let us know about it. And what's happened to those three? Well,
Yeah.
number one, Poch. If you look at Poch, look how some of the fan base vilified him before he left. If you look at people like, for example, Jose, one of the most decorated managers on the planet. we are not worthy to even look at his door, let alone polish his boots. And look how the Spurs fan base spoke about him. Who the fuck? Sorry, who are we? Who are we?
Yeah.
No, seriously. I mean, look, reality shock. Let's get some cold water, let's put it on ourselves, and stop for a second and stop being so arrogant and presumptive. Look at, for example, the ESL, right? The European Super League. There was nothing wrong with having like the best clubs coming together to have the best league. That's an amazing idea. We have that. It's called the Champions League. Anyway, my point is this: is that it's a good idea. The only problem is that the way the competition is based is not based on someone winning something and being promoted up. Is the underdog doesn't stand a bloody chance.
Yeah, that's what I didn't like about it. Yeah, because
that's not a sport.
Yeah, because like you, I didn't have a problem with the ESL if it was done by, if you qualify for it, you're in. I think it was 15 clubs in, regardless, even if they get relegated from the Premier League. No, that's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
So that's an example of saying to you that if you think it's okay just to win something without having earned it, right? You assume that you're in a privileged position, and you're arrogant enough to say, "I deserve this." Why? Because we've got the best stadium in the world. Why? Because we've got the best training facilities in the world. But okay, let's have a look now. You got the best stadium in the world. That's got no one in it. That's not a stadium. Right? You might as well have Zoom meetings for instead. You got the best training facilities in the world. Is it full of the best coaches? Okay. Let's look at have we got any coaches have we got any coaches supporting the under-23 teams that can step up to the first team? Do we have any specialist coaches? Well, we have Vorm coming in. Vorm is now a specialist goalkeeper coach, right?
Yeah,
he's world renowned, right? I mean, he's famous. I mean, like he opened up academy schools of goalkeeper. No, he didn't. Okay, he didn't. Then okay, right. Do you understand my point? My point is that we're not getting the best in terms of people. We're not getting the best in terms of players, and yet we're arrogant enough to assume that because we've got the best facilities, we should be like this. One, we don't spend the money. Okay, our net spend is always pathetically low. It's like £15 million at most. That's net spend, right? So we make money and we spend it back on ourselves. And out of the apparently 8th richest club in the world, we can only afford to spend £15 million out of all the money we make. So that's all we can spend a year, apparently. 8th richest club in the world. Something doesn't add up, and I think basically my whole point is that rather than concentrating on the reality and the facts, we've become like a bit of a banter club where we're just going to say we deserve something, or we and there's no merit. I mean, if you look at Newcastle fans, at least they speak the truth about where their team lies and at what level they expect their teams to perform. All they care about is their players giving like some heart into the game. We're at that stage now, where the skill isn't that great, but so we're thinking, all right, fair enough. At least play for the shirt.
Yeah, I mean, Harry Kane is another one. I mean, we're in a bit of a bad situation at the moment. If we lose him, it could be even worse. I mean, I'm not sure any manager coming in could convince him to stay. I think he wants to win trophies, and we are, unless you get lucky in a FA or League Cup, or Carabao Cup, or whatever it's called now, you ain't going to win anything. And in terms of Premier, well, we can't win the Champions League because we're not in. But in terms of winning the Premier League, we are a million miles off. Whereas 4 years ago, only 4 years ago, we were close if we'd have invested properly. But I mean, do you see any manager coming in and convincing him to stay? And I don't think that will happen. But do you think Levy will just play hardball and say, I want silly money. And if you don't pay it, he's staying. And then Kane through.
No. I think this is one of those really weird situations where we don't have to convince a player. We just don't have to do the things to mess it up. Right? Say, for example, you're trying to get some big superstar to come to your club. You're trying to convince him. Trying to say, look, we've got really good big stadium. We've got really good training facilities. We've got really good this. We've got really good that. You'll really love it here. London. Da, 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 da. That's trying to convince someone. With Harry Kane, it's the opposite. You have to mess it up for him to leave.
Which we've done, potentially.
Many times. He's an absolute saint for staying. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the boy definitely wants to stay. He will look for any excuse to stay.
You think, even though he said he wants to win trophies, you think he still wants to stay here rather than head off for 5 years, win his trophies, and then come back?
No. I think everyone's jumped the gun there a little bit. If you listen very carefully to what he actually said, his message was very simple. I want to win trophies with a team. So what he's basically saying to Levy, listen, dude, show me that I have a team around me. Show me I'm going to have a team. Show me who's going to be managing that team. It could just very well be that maybe Kane is sitting there one day and he gets a message from Levy saying, hey, what do you think about this manager? What do you think about that manager? And maybe all of the realities, maybe he's in control.
But then that's wrong as well, having a player in control. But yeah, I think a player of Kane's level, for me, he's best striker in the world. But player of his level not to win any team trophies would be an absolute crime when he comes to retire and looks back on his career. So, but I mean, okay, you have to have a manager first. You can't go selling and buying players without a manager or a head coach, and we haven't got one.
When Gerrard was managing, when Gerrard was playing for Liverpool, he won a Champions League Cup, right? Istanbul, right? He never won the League Cup. He never won. I don't think they won any FA Cups.
Yeah, they did. They beat West Ham, didn't he? When he scored that screamer to send it to extra time.
Yeah. So if you look at the size of Gerrard, look at the size of their team, the reputation, the pedigree, and so on, just to get those two things without a League Cup. And the one time when he was almost there to win the League Cup, he tripped. And now, what's that Newcastle player?
Demba Ba.
Demba Ba. He saw the opportunity, and I love Demba Ba, but I cried when that happened. Right? I cried. I mean, look. You got to understand that I love football. Right? You got to love football if you want to love Spurs. Right? You can't just be loving a badge without the actual game itself. So when you look at the game itself, you have examples of people in other clubs that gave it all for their team. He could have, imagine Gerrard at Real Madrid or Barcelona. Instead of being stuck at Liverpool, what would he have achieved? What would he have won? Right? So, and from that experience, what could he have brought into the England team, the national team? You got to remember that too. So sometimes we blame Kane, right? Yeah, for not being able to pull it out of the bag in really big tournaments. But you got to remember that when it comes to big tournaments, you got players around him that got big egos. They don't want to pass the ball. They say, Kane, you run that way and you'll take the defenders away from my path. Yeah. And I'll score the goal and I'll look good. And then, people like Sterling come along. Let's face it, he doesn't. I mean, it's a slight media bias. You've seen it. I've seen it. Kane misses a goal, it's the end of the world. Navratilsky misses a goal, it's all right. He'll try another one. The wind was in his face or something. So if Kane, that's the other thing, is that as Spurs fans, we want the ultimate respect given to Kane. And we acknowledge the fact that he has to leave Tottenham in order for him to get respect from the media. And from other people. They're given respect then. If he was a Manchester United player, they would have already voted him as God's gift to mankind a long time ago. I remember Tammy Abrahams played 5 games and they said he was world class. It took 3 seasons for Kane, right, to consistently become the #1 Premier League striker for 3 seasons in a row for them to say, okay, we think he's all right.
Yeah, I mean,
And how quick have they come to knock him back down? So if you take that as a microcosm, if you take that as an example of what's happening to us as a club, we see similar things going on where people are poking and prodding us in such a way that is driving us around in circles, and they're looking at it and laughing. And we've become a joke club to everyone. In fact, people have stopped laughing now. People are starting to feel sorry for us, which is probably the most unique feeling I've ever had. I mean, I live in East London. I'm surrounded by Hammers fans, and I get bantered day and night. Day and night. I get stuff on my streams. I get stuff on my WhatsApp. Day and night. I get it. I get it hard. I'm not even
joking. They're another one. Based on where they finished last season, their expectations would have raised now. But I mean,
I think if you look at our team and you look at their team, no matter which team you look at, once your team has broken into something called the European spots, then what you want to do now is you want to be consistent within that bracket so that you can acquire money and you can acquire status. Status means that basically more players are attracted to you and they're attracted to you at a reasonable fee. So sometimes if you're a smaller club and you're trying to get a bigger player, you have to pay that player more money to come to you. So even though you've got less money, you have to pay more money for the same player to come to you. And sometimes the better off teams get the player a little bit more cheaper. And so when you look at West Ham, for example, it's like you got there, now remain there. So when we were there, this was basically our philosophy. Now we're here. Let's establish ourselves here as a top 4 Premier League side that has Champions League and can get through into the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, year in, year out. Okay, that's the type of team that we were establishing ourselves as a baseline. And obviously, with the new stadium and with the new training facilities, it would have worked out fine. We would have then consolidated that. People would have been attracted to us. The money would have flowed in. We would then eventually buy 1 or 2 more starlets. Okay, and then maybe one year we're very lucky and we do a Leicester and we win the league. For us to be in a position where we can invest the money like Manchester United, Man City, or Chelsea, we cannot do that. We will not do that. So therefore, the only route to win a League Cup is the way that Leicester did it. That's the only way. Everyone else around you has to have a shit season.
Yeah.
And your manager has to promise you pizza. And that's it. Job
done. Last question so that I'm hoping to be able to upload this before the England game at 5 o'clock, but if not, it'll be tomorrow. But so last question. Obviously, I can't remember the date that we play Man City, but that's our first game. Who's going to be leading us out there, manager-wise, head coach-wise, in your opinion?
Okay. One second. Sorry, I need to get rid of this call. Decline. Sorry about that. Many apologies.
That's all right.
I think if you're a comedian, then you will turn around and say, "This is a home fixture, isn't it?" Yeah. Then I will turn around and say that Kane will be leading both home teams out.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. Because I think what Levy's like, isn't it? Right, he's gonna squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze right to the last minute.
Yeah, well, the other issue with that is that eventually someone goes, okay, I'll play Levy ball, and then we end up losing our striker and there are 5 minutes left until the transfer window closed to replace him. But
we've done that before. We've done that with Berbatov.
Yeah,
that was like an amazing thing to do. On the last day of the transfer window, you let your number 1 striker go. Well done, Levy.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to worry that history will repeat itself, and yeah.
Well, it's not a case of history repeats itself. It's just that this is a set of skills that someone has, right? So, it's a case of like if you keep putting the same things in, you're going to keep getting the same things out. You expect to see this in some form or fashion. If you've been observant enough in the past that you've noticed that this is the techniques, this is down to Levy himself, right? Then then you're going to say, well, this is going to keep happening because the same bloke's involved in every stage of the way.
Yeah.
How can Nuno have a meeting with Tottenham Spurs, come out of it thinking, yeah, really great, we're going to get signed a contract, and then later on think, oh no, Levy wasn't impressed with me. Wait a second, what's Levy got to do with it? He's not the director of football.
No.
Right? But all of a sudden, we now got this new chapter, director of football, general manager, and it's already being interfered and fingered with by Levy. So that tells you what you should expect coming up ahead. Nothing's different.
No.
It's just more people fall guys. Look, I'm hoping, right, that Paratici, right, puts a list of A, B, and C players in front of Levy, right, so that if Levy says no, then at least still whoever he chooses is from Paratici's list. Yeah, I'd rather trust his list. I'd rather trust his list than someone else's. I mean, the guy knows football.
Yeah, I mean, if Levy's making the decisions, there's no point in bringing him in. But yeah, I mean.
Okay, me, I'm an optimist. If you ask me, like, for example, right, what do you think is going to be the score between us playing another team? I'll always tell you, we're going to win 4-1. Right? We're playing Man City on the first day of the Premier League. Guess what? We're going to win 4-1.
I'm not sure about 4-1, but I always think that we'll win. I always think that we'll win. And then obviously when we lose, it's even more of a bigger smack in the face. But
Chris, you've seen our team, right?
Yeah.
When we start scoring, it looks like we're scoring for fun. And like, for example, when we beat, who did we beat 4-0 before the end of the season? When Bale scored a hat-trick. That's it. Look, it's not a given that you can score 4 goals against Palace.
No.
But we made it look easy. We made those 4 goals. It's not that we made the 4 goals. It's like the 4 goals happened, but we weren't still satisfied. We weren't still satisfied. It didn't look like the 4 goals, even though it's a lot of goals. It didn't feel like that. It didn't feel comprehensive. And I think that's what's missing from our team right now. We don't have that comprehensive feeling. So whoever comes in, they've got a lot of work to do. And for the fan base, I think fan base just better like relax itself, learn some yoga techniques, because it's not going to be pleasant to watch what happens between September to Christmas. Because whoever the manager is, he's going to have a problem. Maybe the first week or two, the players are playing out their skin. But after a while, the reality is going to start hitting home. So manager-wise, I think you're right. I personally am the same as you. I would prefer someone like Potter. I'm not that type of arrogant fan that believes that we should have, the world's best, and we shouldn't expect anything less. Well, really? Look how you treated Danny Rose. Shut up and go away. Because this is, I don't know. It's going to be interesting, because don't forget, at the same time as whoever the new manager comes in, we're also going to have protests outside. We're also going to have the social media whirlpool, right? Yeah, where you're not going to be given a second opportunity. Everyone's going to be on your case. So whoever that comes in, they better have a really, really thick skin. I mean, I'll back whoever comes in.
Same here. Yeah. Hopefully we get someone in before the first game. We can get some players in and ship out some of the dead wood. But unfortunately, we've run out of time. Been great talking to you. Thanks so much again for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. And you're welcome back anytime. Before you go, you are on Twitter. I don't know if you've got any streams or YouTube channels or anything. So if you want to give people your Twitter handle, any YouTube or stream things, so that they can go and listen and follow you.
Well, I think let's have a look. This channel is Let's Talk Spurs, right? Or Let's Talk Tottenham, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep. Right. If you're watching this, tell everyone to come and join up, man. Seriously, this is a really good channel. I like the way Chris presents things, and he's a really easygoing guy. Definitely like this video, and definitely tell other people, share it with other people, put it out on Twitter, share it with other people, so that if there's someone out there that's interested, they might come across them and they'll come over here. Myself personally, do you know Will Stewart's THFC's Rants channel?
No, I don't know.
Okay, right. Okay, it's late night. It's a late night channel because it's based in America, and I come on that. I have a show on there every Tuesday night, 11 o'clock GMT, called Three Wise Men.
Is that on YouTube?
Yeah, that's on YouTube. It's under the Will Stewart's THFC Rants channel. and basically, I have there's three of us because three wise men. One of them is me, myself, MisterK, otherwise known as Khalid. I have Brian Daigle.
Yeah, I've spoken to him on Tommy's channel before.
Right, he's one of our three panelists. One of the three wise men. I have another gentleman called Awesome AWE, Awesome All, and that's actually his name. Awesome, believe it or not, awesome guy. And basically, he's more into the financial side of it. He looks at it in terms of money and so forth. So he's the third three wise men. We don't all appear on the program at the same time. Sometimes somebody else comes in and so forth, fills it up. But generally speaking, the whole show is not about current affairs as such. It's about learning from each other, educating each other, using our memories and our experiences to share the reality of something that's happened, as opposed to the hearsay. And through that learning process, we can start to use that knowledge, that education that we're getting, to look at what's happening with our club, what's happened in the past, and we can then see the reality of what really has happened, what has been happening, and what will happen. And that will hopefully lighten our minds and no longer put the burden of not knowing. And once we can do that, I'm hoping that people who enlighten their minds with knowledge shared amongst each other will then go out there and inspire other people to do the same thing. And I'm hoping that this spreads like this amongst the Spurs fan base. I want the Spurs fan base to support each and every single person that comes into the social media arena. And, I think people like yourself, for example, are absolutely fundamental in order to create that, because we've been starved of proper content for years. And now there's loads of content. There's loads of content creators out there. Like yourself, for example, sparing some time between your lunch to create these type of streams. It's not easy, but you're doing it. Thank you very much.
No problem. And Three Wise Men, THFC Vance, go follow them on YouTube. Watch Khalid on there. And thanks so much again for coming on. Pleasure to talk to you, and come back soon.
Thank you very much. Come on, you Spurs.
Thanks so much for watching. Before you go, please make sure you give the like and subscribe buttons a click. Any questions, comments, or any suggestions for future episodes, if you just add those into a comment on the YouTube video. If you're listening to the audio only podcast, thanks so much for listening. Anyone who wants the audio only podcast, you can get that at Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your audio podcast from. Alternatively, if you go to Twitter at LTalkTottenham, you can find all the information there. I'll be back soon. Until then, come on, you Spurs!